Are you someone who really struggles with the word no and then ends up juggling 1,000 things at the same time and not finishing any of them? Well, if you are, then this book right here is a must-read for you. Essentialism by Greg Mckeown. Let's see what it's all about. How are you all going, guys? Welcome back to another video. I'm Nathan, this is Walk It Off, and today we're checking out Essentialism by Greg Mckeown. Now, this is a slightly more corporate style book than what I would usually read here for #read this, but it is a really, really good one nevertheless. It's kind of a 50-50 split between a kind of more corporate take on the whole self-development and mental health realm, but also it's got a lot of personal material in here as well. I really enjoyed it. It's very succinct and it's very well written. There's no kind of fluff which usually holds a book like this back. Greg has been kind of very contemplative in terms of the way he's written this, and as is the title of the book, there is no non-essential flourishes in here. Everything that is in here for a very well thought out purpose. Well, I think one of the main things a lot of people are going to come to this book with is like, hey Nath, how is this any different from the concept of minimalism, essentially? And it is more or less exactly the same, just kind of applied to a non-material set of things. So this is more about how to protect your time, right? Because when you overextend yourself, you end up performing really poorly on every single thing that you're trying to do. So unless you're taking all of the things that make someone say fiscally responsible and you're applying that to time, because time is basically the only real currency in our lives that actually matter, because you're never going to get it back. You don't want to wreck some of the best parts of your life by missing out on them, by saying yes to the wrong things. I've worked really hard in the last 5 years to kind of whittle my life down to 4 buckets, and each has a very significant place in my life. The first and my most primary of all of these buckets is family. The next is my art and my graphic design and things like that, and anything that is related to that. The next is mental health and hiking, which is, why we're all here and why I'm here. And the next is my passion for space and science and all things related to that. And what I have essentially tried to do is take the edicts, the thoughts that Greg has in this one right here, and essentially, if I can't fit something into one of those 4 buckets in my life, then I generally try to say no to it. Namely because it's a diversion. It's not really part of what I'm trying to do. It's not going to make any particular part of my life better to go chasing something. So yeah, if it doesn't fit into one of those 4 things, then it is just a clear no for me. And that's one of the real highlights of this book, and the main core messages is that either you set your priorities or someone else is going to set them for you. And it's kind of like one of those situations where it's hard to listen to someone complain who isn't taking control of their life like that. And you kind of feel like saying, stop being dragged. People who are kind of more people pleasers, people who don't particularly like conflict are probably a lot more prone to this, in that They will try to resist conflict by saying yes to everything, even if it drags them off in a particularly bad direction. And that's what this one's all about, is learning what are the things that you should say yes to and what are the things you should say no to. One of the best quotes in here is something like, if it's not an instantaneous yes, then it's a hard no, straight away. It's trying to remove something from your life which is known as decision fatigue. And I mean, if you're in a particularly high stress environment, having to make decisions all the time can actually have quite a significant emotional toll on you, and you'll get quite tired from it. But if you set your life up in such a way that you've got rules to govern what these decisions should, like how they should be, if you're removing the decision-making part of it because you've got a set of rules to govern, which you can already, like these questions are already answered before they're even asked, then you don't have to worry about it. You can actually spend all of your emotional energy on the things that are worth worrying about. So in graphic design, one of the edicts of that profession is minimalism, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of where the whole idea of minimalism comes from. And the whole premise of it is less is more. And I know that sounds like a self-contradictory statement, but it's really not. And a really good way to look at it is in parenting. Now, I don't know about you guys, but my kids' rooms are just absolutely overflowing with plastic toys. And the more they get, the less they play with each particular one. And so by having less toys, they play with each one more, if you're starting to pick up what I'm putting down, so to speak. And in graphic design, we control eye flow through putting things on a page or on a screen, for instance. So if I put a giant flashing red dot in the middle of a white or black screen, that's all you're going to be able to look at, because it's the only feature there, really. It pulls your eye towards it. And the same thing can be applied to your time and your emotional energy. Like I said, I've got the 4 buckets rule, and I think that most people could really do with that kind of system in their lives. There's actually a lot of crossover in that. If you've read The Barefoot Investor, which is a really good book in terms of personal finances, it has the same methodological approach in that your finances should have a series of buckets. In fact, that's probably where I got the term from. But essentially, you're taking the decision making out of a particular thing, so it's not something you have to worry about making the decision over. You don't have to expend extra energy worrying about it, which I think everybody needs a hell of a lot more in their lives. You see a lot people are almost kind of proud of being really, really busy today, and at the same time, they're not really getting very much accomplished. But at the same time, everybody knows someone who, despite being under so much pressure, really holds themselves with this kind of grace and still seems to get a lot done. And I think that is from taking an essentialist approach. It's that, okay, I'm only going to do what really matters to me and what's important in here, and not worry about anything else. And I mean, you can tell when someone doesn't have that approach, because their lives are kind of getting pulled in every which way. So, yeah, Greg, you are definitely on to something in this. So I think the core of this can actually be summed up as having to acknowledge trade-offs in your life. In that, if you say yes to everything, you're not going to be able to commit equally to all of them. And I think that's probably one of the most adult things you have to learn. And I think by sheltering kids, we kind of deprive them of learning this. And that's that you can't have everything at once, right? It is physically impossible to do everything. And yeah, like I said, that is just the most adult concept. It's realizing that you cannot achieve every single thing in one day, and not overcommitting yourself will lead to each individual thing that you're trying to do having a much, much better result. Okay, so like I said, despite being so corporate, there is actually a couple of really, really heartfelt but tragic stories in here about people who couldn't run the essentialist methodology in their lives, and they actually missed out on some really key moments. There's the story of a dad whose little girl died at the age of 3, and as part of his grieving process, he wanted to go back and make a short film about her unfortunately very short life. And as he was going back to review all of the footage that he had, he realised that he shot where he was and other things and all the touristy shit. He never really filmed himself interacting with his little girl or her at all. And it's, you know, like I said, he's getting pulled out in every other direction except for the thing that he actually cherished the most. And he missed that, and he's never getting it back. That's heartbreaking. And that's the last thing I want any of you guys to put yourselves through. So you've got to work this out, and you've got to commit to it. Otherwise, you're really setting yourself up to fail. But you've got to make some choices as to what you're going to commit to. It doesn't really matter what, so long as you commit to it. And I think that's the key to building yourself and making things better on both a personal level, in your workplace, and on a societal level. It's time to focus on fixing things and making things better. And if you truly want to do that, actually commit to it. I know that it's hard sometimes because you've got all these shiny things going off everywhere, but unless you can learn commitment, then you're not going to get anywhere, guys. Alrighty guys, so the key takeaways here is manage your time and make your own priorities, otherwise someone else is going to make them for you. This is a very, very good book. I very highly recommend this one. Just be fair warned that it is a bit more kind of corporately focused, but it is really good nonetheless. I very highly recommend it. Until next time, I'm Nathan, this is Walk It Off. Go outside, get better, be awesome. Catch you next time, guys.